Hi, guys, and welcome back to Drive to School Chat, where we discuss a subtopic in geography on our way to school. Now, today we are going to talk about, or we are going to be discussing the Frank dependency theory. Now, this is a development theory, and we know that development is the process by which a country makes um, social, economic, and environmental progress. So, if that's the case, then this is a theory about the differences that there are between the development of countries. Okay, so what does this theory stipulate, or what did Frank suggest? Now, he suggested that the world can be divided into two groups of countries. And the first group of countries he called the core, and the core refers to the rich countries. And then the second group of country is the periphery, which are the poor countries. And his theory suggests that there are inequalities, or there is inequality between countries in the world due to exploitation of the periphery by the core. And he said that that has happened historically as well as through the global economy. Now, let's start with the historical part of his argument. So he argues that historically, countries experienced colonialism. So colonialism is where a country is taken over by another country, and the resources of that country that has been taken over are controlled by the occupying country, by the country that is controlling them. So Frank's dependency theory suggests that because of colonialism, some countries were hindered from developing, and that's because their resources were controlled by different countries, and those other countries that were controlling their resources benefited economically, while the growth of these countries that were colonized was stunted because they could not make use of their own resources to develop. Now, that is historically, obviously, because at the moment, there are no countries that are facing colonialism. Okay, so that's historically. Then he said that the second way that the core exploits the periphery is through the global economy. Now, he suggested that the core countries will normally get raw materials from the periphery countries at a very minimal price. And then they will process those raw materials into finished goods or into manufactured products, and then sell them back to the core for a large profit. And he said that that's another way through which the core will exploit the periphery. Now, let's give an example so that it's a little clearer. So, if, for example, the core country is buying coffee beans from a periphery country, so a poor country. So the poor country is producing coffee beans. They are growing coffee and producing coffee beans, and they are then going to sell those coffee beans to a rich country, or a core country, say for 20 cents. Now, in terms of dollars, let's just take, okay, because we're in the UK, let's use pounds. So let's say they are selling each kilogram of coffee to that rich country for 20p, so 20 pence per kilo. Then the core country then takes those coffee beans into a factory, processes the coffee beans, and makes them ready to go onto the shelf in the supermarket. Now, that processing is done obviously in a factory. And once they are done processing, that coffee is going to be sold, say, in half-kilogram jars, for example. And for each of the jars, say they are selling that jar for £8, right? Now, that would mean that a kilo of that coffee, when it has been processed, is going to cost £16. Now, if you compare that to the 20 pence that the core country paid for that coffee, and especially because that coffee will be exported into that poor country where it was grown, and those people who grew the coffee, as in the farmers, are likely now to be buying that coffee for £16 a kilo, whereas they got only 20 pence per kilo for it. So in that particular, from that perspective, then the core is exploiting the periphery because they are getting raw materials very cheaply from them, and then processing them and selling them for an exorbitant amount, or what in economics would be referred to as supernormal profits. And he said that that is one way in which the core exploits the periphery and keeps the periphery poor. So let's do a quick recap then. So what is Frank's dependency theory? So Frank's dependency theory categorizes countries into core countries, which are HICs, and then periphery countries, which are LICs. And he says that the core countries exploit the periphery. And that has been done historically through colonialism, and is being done presently through the global economy. Okay, that winds it up then for this Drive to School chat. Thank you for joining me in this drive to school and on this journey towards excellent exam results. If there's a topic that you would like us to discuss on the way to school, please do let me know in the comment section below, and we will be sure to discuss it one of these fine mornings on our way to school. All the best, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.